The sirens were barely audible at first, just a distant whine, but they got real loud, real fast, coming up our quiet little cul-de-sac. And that's when my wife Dana, still in my old oversized college hoodie and fuzzy slipper socks, stepped out onto the porch, lifted her badge, and watched two grown police officers freeze mid-stride. Seriously, their hands hovered over their belts, their faces went blank, and then there was Brenda, our self-appointed neighborhood queen, whose jaw dropped so far I honestly thought she'd dislocated it, just gaping at the metallic gleam of that federal shield. "I'm going to need you to explain to my staff why you're interfering with a secured federal operation on private property," Dana said. And man, her voice. It was that perfect blend of icy authority and utter fatigue that told you she'd dealt with worse things before breakfast, which, knowing Dana, she probably had. Brenda, this pastel-wearing storm of pure suburban busybodyism, actually took a stumbling step back, her expensive little knit cardigan fluttering like a tattered white flag of immediate surrender. "My name is Mike Evans, and I'm just a guy. A structural engineer who dreams in slow-motion BBQ smoke and meticulously organized tool benches, and 3 years ago, my wife and I thought we had found our peace. We bought a gorgeous mid-century home on Elderwood Lane, a big private lot, and the best part. The listing proudly declared, no HOA. We checked the deeds, the property lines, everything was crystal clear. We were an island of glorious independence in a sea of managed beige. It was perfection, or so we thought, until Brenda Maxwell came along, a self-anointed queen of Elderwood. Crest ruling her tiny homeowners association kingdom like a 17th century tyrant in sensible slingbacks. Now, Brenda ran the Elderwood Crest HOA, but here was the catch, and it's the one that fueled 3 years of escalating madness. Our property, Lot 14, had been successfully excluded from the covenant back in the 70s by the original owner, a stubborn old gentleman who saw mandatory petunia colors as an affront to freedom. But Brenda saw our independence as a gaping existential hole in her perfect community vision. At first, it was kind of funny. She left a welcome basket with a copy of the official Elderwood Crest bylaws, revised 2005, which was a binder thicker, then a phone book, and a list of approved drought-resistant shrubs. She even included a laminated card with the acceptable hours for non-emergency lawn maintenance. We laughed, honestly. We used the bylaws as a drink coaster. But then, the passive aggression started to turn. Aggressive. Little printed notes, always in a fussy script font on her self-designed HOA letterhead, would appear taped to our mailbox. Our mailbox, the one we inherited, was apparently non-compliant charcoal gray and was detracting from the aesthetic harmony. My beautiful, custom-built smoker on the patio was dubbed an unapproved external combustion device and a fire hazard. The thing that really set Dana off, though, was the note complaining that her unmarked black sedan, a standard-issue government vehicle, mind you, was suspicious activity and suggested we park unsightly fleet vehicles out of view. Dana nearly choked on her coffee when she read that one. We tried ignoring her. We waved politely when she marched past with her clipboard. Dana developed a patented sweet smile and shut-the-door move whenever Brenda launched into one of her rehearsed rants about community values. We figured she'd move on to complaining about another neighbor's bird bath eventually. She didn't. She doubled down. The fake fines started showing up, slipped into our door with official-looking stamps. $100 for excessive weed overgrowth. It was a patch of clover, okay? $150 for unauthorized exterior decor. That was my wife's cheerful ceramic garden gnome holding a fishing pole. And then the big one. $300 for aggressively non-neutral paint tones, targeting the deep, beautiful navy blue on our shutters, a color that had been on the house since 1985. We started keeping our shredder right by the front door, feeding it Brenda's paper waste like a hungry pet. The voicemails were the worst. Every single Saturday at 6:45 a.m., Brenda's shrill, breathy voice would rattle the machine, demanding our attendance at emergency meetings, threatening liens, and at one point, claiming our bird feeders were attracting unauthorized, non-native avian species that threatened the entire community's ecosystem. I tried one time to be the voice of reason. I caught her during her power walk, showed her the property exclusion clause on a printout, and even offered to buy her a coffee to clear the air. She just scoffed, snapped a photo of my license plate, and muttered something about unauthorized non-HOA personnel on the shared path. Then came the final flashpoint. I'd taken a week off to build the custom workshop I'd always wanted, a simple 10x12 structure perfectly permitted by the city, painted a tasteful slate gray. I was halfway through roofing when Brenda stormed up to the gate, her face the color of a bruised eggplant. She started yelling about unauthorized structural additions and calling the county, claiming I was building a second home. I figured she'd call her nephew, the one who took a paralegal course online. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning when the 2 patrol cars rolled up. Brenda, clutching her 3-ring binder of bylaws and a venti caramel macchiato, puffed out her chest and began dramatically narrating my flagrant disregard for suburban order to the 2 officers. I walked around the house, hands covered in sawdust, ready to show them the laminated city permits in my back pocket. But before I could even open my mouth, Dana emerged. That hoodie, those slippers, and the look in her eyes that instantly diffused every crisis she had ever faced in her career. She took in the scene, the 2 bewildered cops, the hyperventilating, HOA president, me looking like a confused construction worker, and let out a sigh that was long practiced, deep, and final. Then she reached inside her hoodie, pulled out that familiar silver lanyard, and held up her badge. Special Agent Dana Evans, she stated, her voice cutting through the morning air like a judge's gavel. Federal law enforcement, Department of Justice, everything went absolutely silent. The senior officer's eyes went wide. The younger officer swallowed audibly. And Brenda? She looked like a cheap balloon slowly deflating. Dana didn't break her gaze from the senior officer, maintaining that same unhurried, commanding tone. This property is under federal jurisdiction. The structure my husband is building is a secure storage facility for government equipment. Your presence and the activities of this civilian are currently interfering with a classified operation. Now, was that technically true? Well, the shed was a secure structure, and classifying my attempts to organize our garage as an impossible operation was certainly accurate. The younger cop immediately started shuffling his feet, mumbling to his partner, Sarge, we might need to, check the jurisdictional priority on this one." The senior officer just nodded, already backing toward his cruiser. "We're going to make a few phone calls," he said, which I knew and they knew was universal cop code for, "We are leaving this mess right now." Brenda was left standing there, her mouth opening and closing like a distressed koi fish. She tried to stammer something about neighborhood sovereignty, but Dana was already a step ahead. She reached into the worn leather folder she'd brought out, pulled out a crisp, legal-looking document, and handed it to a shaking Brenda with a smile so genuinely polite it was chilling. "This," Dana explained, tapping the paper, "is a cease and desist letter, drafted by my agency's legal counsel. Impersonating a regulatory authority, making false reports, and harassing a federal officer and their family on their private property comes with rather severe liabilities. I recommend you read the section on federal statute violations very, very carefully." That letter was 100% real. Dana's colleagues, after hearing about our HOA nightmare over lunch, thought it was hysterical and happily dedicated an afternoon to drafting the most terrifying legal document they could imagine. Turns out, government lawyers absolutely relished the chance to put an overreaching HOA president in their place. Brenda's face began a slow, agonizing transition through all the colors of a broken traffic light. Deep red, turning to purple, and finally settling on a sickly, clammy gray as her eyes darted across words like criminal complaint, official harassment, and tortious interference. Words spread through Elderwood Crest faster than a brush fire. By that evening, Brenda's phone must have been melting. The HOA board, the real one, the one that usually just approved budgets, called an emergency meeting. We knew because our neighbor Carl, the HOA treasurer and a certified Brenda hater, filled us in later. The meeting was brutal. The board's actual lawyer, not Brenda's cousin who did wills, laid out in excruciating detail how Brenda's actions had exposed the HOA to massive legal and financial risk. False reports, harassment, Mao Dan, impersonating an official, all of it a legal minefield. The vote was unanimous. Brenda was immediately suspended from her position. Carl said the word temporary was doing a lot of heavy lifting there. She was required to write formal, abject apologies to us, to the police department, and to every homeowner she had falsely fined. But Dana wasn't quite done ensuring the victory was total. At the next community social, a summer potluck down at the park, Dana showed up not with a casserole, but with a presentation. Know your boundaries, HOA authority versus property sovereignty. She made attendance mandatory for all board members. And frankly, everyone showed up just for the popcorn. She handed out little pocket constitutions and bookmarks with key property law statutes. Brenda, seated by the potato salad, looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. And then, the moment of sweet, karmic justice. Brenda was forced to stand up and publicly apologize for what the board officially termed gross overreach of authority. Reading from a stiff, prepared statement, her voice was so faint it could barely be heard over the hum of the lemonade dispenser. The real sting, though, was financial. The HOA's insurance company slapped her with the $5,000 deductible for the legal cleanup. Her false police report earned her a municipal misdemeanor charge and an $800 fine. And the final beautiful blow. The board voted again, unanimously, to permanently remove her from her position. Carl told me she actually started sobbing uncontrollably when they took away her gavel, clutching it like a life raft as she was escorted out. For the first time in 3 years, Elderwood Lane was quiet. And it was glorious. We finished the shed, organized the garage, and my navy blue shutters have never looked better. Our island of independence? It became a monument to knowing your rights and standing up to manufactured authority. So tell me, have you ever dealt with a Brenda in your life? Someone who just couldn't stand the idea of boundaries? What did you do to finally make them back off? Drop your stories in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe in property rights over power trips. And subscribe for more tales of sweet, sweet justice.